In this video, I will be showing you a trick with every single operator in Rainbow Six Siege. The purpose of this video is to not only show you these tricks I am presenting, but to help give you a deeper understanding of the gadgets themselves, and hopefully allow you to think outside the box a bit more, and start developing your own little tricks and strats. This video did take a lot of effort to make, so if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. We're trying to hit 100k by the end of the year, and I need all your support. It's free to do, and if you end up not liking me in the future, you can always unsubscribe. As well as this video is going to be timestamped, so if you would like to see a trick for a specific operator, you can take a look at the times in the description and find the desired time for your specific operator. So without further ado, let's get into this. So starting off, we have Kapkan, probably referred to as one of the most annoying defenders to play against. Kapkan makes the attacking team have to drone and feet check every single doorway on the map. And in a game like Rainbow Six Siege, where you're meant to be aiming upwards and going for that head level one-shot headshot kill, having to constantly look down at your feet gives you a massive disadvantage and makes Kapkan that ever more stronger. So to be the best Kapkan player you can, you want to have your traps hidden in the best places. And to do this, you're going to want to use the environment of the map to your advantage, and in this case, the lighting. There are some rooms and some maps in Rainbow Six Siege which have some interesting lighting, and you as the Kapkan player can exploit that lighting to help hide your traps even more. One of the best ones which I have found is on Bar on Clubhouse. Going through this single door which separates the bar itself and the stage, the lights above give off a very strong orange/yellow tint, which really do help hide your Kapkan traps, and in this place specifically, I like to place two of them, and there's been so many occasions where the attackers have roam cleared, not knowing that these Kapkan traps are there since they're so well hidden, and the Hibana who's doing her round on the hatches walks through this, dies, and the attackers can no longer open the hatches. So the next time you play Kapkan, always think about how the environment around the trap is going to help affect its visibility. This next one is pretty simple as well, but you never really see people doing it, but you can actually juggle Jager's ADSs similar to how you can do with other gadgets such as Bandit. Here in this example, we are going to be facing off against a Ying who has 4 Candelas in her hand. Myself as the Jager got rid of the 2 other ADSs, making sure I only had 1. As you can see, once the ADS has been burned by the first Ying Candela, all I have to do is pick it up again, place it back down, wait for it to quickly activate, and it will once again be ready to stop the next Candela. This can be repeated until the end of the round as long as Jager is still alive and the ADS itself doesn't get destroyed. Now, of course, in this scenario I'm showing, the Ying would probably kill me because she's right in front of me. So you'll probably have the most success with this if you're doing it on a drone hole where the enemy cannot see you or shoot your ADS, rather they can only throw items in. But yeah, this is an insanely useful trick which you never really see people doing, and this could honestly win some rounds and help protect bandit batteries and other items from getting on the wall. Now, this is a trick with Echo which I absolutely adore, and you never see many people doing it. Ever since Ubisoft changed how defending cameras work outside of the map, Echo's drone got a significant buff and new trick, which can give you so much intel which you typically shouldn't get. So when this change to defender cameras outside was added, one of the things which was changed was the time it takes for them to be deactivated when outside the map. It used to be a few seconds, now it is 10 seconds. With Echo's drone having the ability to jump from the floor to the ceiling, having 10 seconds outside the map can lead to some interesting plays. For example, here's one for Canal. Drive Echo's drone outside of the reception door, and the moment it goes outside, press the jump button and it will fly into the sky. Now, of course, it won't stick to anything, but you'll be able to get intel on anyone on the roof playing outside the breach, and anyone in the surrounding area. This can be done on maps which have skylights as well, and basically any doorway. And of course, since your drone is outside, you will have to get it back inside within the 10-second frame, but the moment it goes back inside, the timer resets and you can do it once again. You can red ping whilst you're doing this as well, so basically you have a little UAV on the fence where you can drive out, jump in the sky, go for a scan, and bring it back into the building. This is, without a doubt, one of the strongest tricks for cameras on defense, and especially for Echo. Clash is a defending operator which people always play incorrectly. I always see people just get really aggressive with Clash themselves and never really assist their teammates and die in the process. As you can see in this clip where I am playing alongside a Clash, the Clash should be used as a portable mirror window. The Clash should stay stationary and work around the operator behind them. The operator assisting the Clash should be the ones telling Clash when to move. When you are picking Clash, you're there to serve your teammates, you're not there to get kills. Stop playing aggressive, listen to what your teammates want you to do, and do it for them. There you will find so much more success, and you'll be playing the operator effectively. This is a really fun one for Oryx. On Top Floor Cafe, it's usually very wise to shoot out a lot of the wooden bars, as it opens up angles from Cocktail, and allows defenders playing there to see default plant spot, and other bits where attackers who have entered may be hiding. But it takes a lot of time to do that, it uses a lot of ammo and utility, and it isn't usually very clean. That's where Oryx dashes come in. Using your Oryx dashes on these bar tables, it will destroy all of the wooden in them, opening it up and just leaving their frames, and this takes no health away from the Oryx himself. All he has to do is recharge his ability, which doesn't take very long, and by the end of the prep phase, you'll have every single one of these wooden bars open, and you as a defending team will have an increased line of sight and control over the bomb site itself. Now here's a really cool one for Flores and his drones. Let's say we want one of his explosive drones to go on the roof above us. Well, you can't throw his drones, and they can't jump very high. Well, it turns out if you actually start punching holes in the wall, these will act as little ledges for the drone to jump on. This way, you can sort of make a little climbing frame for your drone, and eventually you can jump its way to the top of the roof, and once it's detonated, it will stick to it, and then finally, it will explode in your desired location. Although it's not as safe as nading from below, this can have the similar effect if there's certain locations where you would like to deploy a grenade, but you only have a Flores available at that time. It's just something good to know in case you may need it in the future. Next up we have Thorn, and I really love playing this operator when defending Exhibition on Skyscraper. I'm going to show a trick that works a lot for me when defending this site. So a lot of you probably run barbed wire on Thorn, you know, slow down the enemies, get them caught in my trap, get a kill. Well, for this, I like to run a deployable shield. I go to the single window, also referred to as Samurai, and I place my deployable shield right as you enter the window, but giving the attacker enough room to get in. I then place one of my razor blooms in this little indent to the right of the window where it cannot be shot from the window, and what this does is when an attacker jumps through this window, they can't get past the shield unless they vault, but by the time they're in the window, the razor bloom will start to detonate. If they stay, they die. If they jump over the shield, the razor bloom can still hit them, and they can get shot by teammates playing in Exhibition or Office. And if they try and jump out the window, they're turning their back to us where we can shoot them, and a lot of the time, the razor bloom already catches them by the time they get out of the window itself. This is my go-to trick with Thorn, and I highly recommend trying it out yourself. Here's a great trick for Azami you can use on Canal Top Bridge. Placing a Kiva barrier along the bridge at the top creates an angle which exposes the feet of anyone who jumped in Printer and are attempting to push the bridge. This is where you, as a defender, who also has a half wall of coverage here, get the first sight onto the bottom half of their body and can start picking away at them until they die. This one trick right here will help you win so many defenses when playing this site on Canal, as it really does help stopping the push from Printer and Bridge. Next up we have Sens. They're still trying to find themselves in the meta, but I do think the operator does have a lot of potential. One of the best ones I think is when attacking Armory on Theme Park. This is when attacking from Dragon side, you can throw their gadget through the drone hole or through the door itself, and this will create a split between the two bomb sites. Since this is a common crossfire, cutting off this line of sight is extremely useful, as well as having a teammate at the same time pushing split. This means that half of your team can isolate a bomb site each, and severely diminish the amount of control which the defenders have. This, in my opinion, shows how useful Sense can be, and I think this operator is going to get better over time. Now, Lesion is one of my most played defenders in Rainbow Six Siege, was the first defender I got when I joined the game in Operation Blood Orchid, and still to this day he has not only one of my favorite gadgets but also favorite primary weapons. So what you want to do with Lesion, and you typically kind of want to do this at the beginning of the round, of course Lesion becomes more effective the longer he is alive because he therefore gets more goo mines, but simply start placing some goo mines in default plant spots. When I am defending CC Cache on Clubhouse, I'll of course have some goo mines on the stairs, on rafters, in construction. They allow me to know when attackers are pushing those sides and I can react accordingly to that, but we can have a little contingency plan here which doesn't really cost a lot of utility, only one goo mine. Take a little evaluation at the bomb site you're in and determine where the most default plant spot is. For me in CC Cache, I'd say the most default plant spot is by the bomb chassis itself and tucked away by the shelf. Placing a single goo mine here means in this scenario, if they do go for a plant, let's say they have the breach and there's only like 15 seconds, 10 seconds on the clock, and they got a plant in this default plant spot. If the person who has the diffuser steps on a goo mine, they cannot plant until they take that goo mine out their foot. Attackers do not have all the time in the world, they need to be fast. If you're in the dying moments of a round and the attackers have to put down the diffuser and that attacker has a goo mine in his foot, the clock is going to keep ticking and they have to get that goo mine out. And even if there's 5 seconds on the clock and they hit a goo mine, they've lost, they can't plant. So for just the low cost of one goo mine, you can potentially stop an attacker from planting and win the round. And to me, I think that's worth it. Now, Ying is a very interesting operator as I believe that she is very misunderstood. I mean, I want you all to be honest with me and drop a comment right now. How many of you knew that Ying's Candelas can be placed on the floor and will go through the floor to the site below? There's so many people I've seen who just genuinely didn't know this. And so with this trick in mind, start to synergize Ying with some other vertical operators such as Sledge, Ash, Buck, anyone you're playing vertical with. Heck, even a Fuze would be really deadly to run with this Ying strat, because all you have to do is if they're playing Starting below, you Ying through the floor, it will flash everyone in sight, and Fuze at the same time could detonate a cluster charge, and the defenders will not know where it's coming from, and they'll potentially die to the cluster charge. Just imagine you as a defender playing bottom floor canal, a bunch of candelas start coming from the floor above, you can't see anything, and at the same time you start hearing a cluster charge go off from a Fuze. You're going to start running around, you're going to start panicking, and there's a high chance that that cluster charge is going to kill you. So I honestly believe that Ying has a lot of untouched potential when it comes to using her flashes through soft walls and soft floors. Ela can be used in a very similar situation to Lesion and some other operators as well. Placing her gadget in a common plant spot can stop a plant itself, but you can also take people out of many different animations. And if you are in that 1v1 situation and you have a Gersmot mine in your pocket, times when in real low and the attacker has to go for a plant, you can throw the Gersmot mine in their general direction, it'll detonate, take them off the planting animation, and they'll have to either go for it again and peek you, but they will also be concussed. I feel like Ela is quite a good operator to keep one in your pocket, because you never know if you're starting to face off with someone that could come in handy at that time, rather than it sitting on a doorway at the other side of the map. Of course, that all depends on the situation and the round you're in. She is still very effective at just placing them on default doorways and allowing them to concuss attackers when they push through, allowing you to go for a swing and a potential kill. Now, we've talked about Ela being able to take people off planting animations, but did you know that Zofia's concussion charges can also stop people from defusing? A well-timed Zofia concussion charge can act similar to how a yokai drone can disorient someone on the plant. But of course, this is going to be for the attacking team. Let's use the example of CCTV cache on Clubhouse since it is such a famous bomb site, and let's say diffuser is down in default spot and the defender is going to try and go for a defuse. A lone Zofia on the window with a concussion grenade can stop the defender in the animation of defusing the diffuser, and can win the round without even needing to shoot the defender themselves. I know it is very similar to how Ela's one is, but they are basically the attacking and defending equivalent of each other. Vigil is a very popular defending roaming operator, who right now is in a very useful state because one of the operators he counters is one of the most picked attackers across the board in the game. Although you may know by now that Vigil counters Lion. When Lion does a Lion scan, Vigil activates his gadget and he's immune to being scanned and can run about. But what a lot of people seem to forget is that Vigil is also immune to Iana. When Iana goes on her decoy and walks about, if Vigil activates his ability, she can't see him. To Iana, he's completely invisible. This allows you, as a Vigil, just to walk straight past her decoy, find where she is, and just take her out. And this is extremely useful at the current point of upload since Iana has such a high pick rate, and it seems like she will for the foreseeable future. For Finka, there's not really much you can do other than just heal your teammates or revive them. A lot of the other changes she used to do, like give you less recoil, which was honestly stupid, and I'm so glad they removed it. It was more of a burden than helpful. But it seems like a lot of people forget that Finka is also really useful at countering concussion effects such as flashbangs, yokai drones, Ela's Gersmot mines. But she should also be used alongside Ying to help your teammates recover from flashes from the candelas from Ying herself. Let's say you're going to go for a direct push into sight and you have a strat with Ying, but your teammates may get flashed in the process as you're pushing the site together. Popping a Finka boost after the candelas will go off will make all your teammates recover 50% faster than the defenders will. That means when you're doing a direct Ying push into sight, even if your teammates get flashed, they will recover before the defenders will, and you will still have that advantage despite being flashed initially. Lion is another operator on the surface which you can't really do much with other than just detonate it, and of course it forces the defenders to stand still. But again, this is why you have to start synergizing with other attackers. Using a Fuze or a Capitao, then popping a line scan at the same time, will have to force defenders into a choice which they have a bad outcome either way. Let's say someone is in a corner and you shoot a Capitao flame bolt. Of course, that flame bolt will have to make the defender move or they'll die. But then there's Lion, whose goal is to make the defenders stand still or they'll get pinged. But then the defenders have to make a choice. They have to either stand still but get hit by the Capitao, or move away from the fire but then get hit by the Lion. Lion is an operator which benefits most from other operators on the team to allow them to one-up the enemy using that knowledge. When it comes to Alibi, you're not very wise placing it out in the open. The bit that destroys this gadget is at the feet level. If you have that blocked by a hard surface or a shield, the attackers are going to either have to waste utility to destroy it or just accept the fact that that is a Prisma and there's nothing that they can do about it at the current point in time. That's why it is really useful to place them on windows, especially sight windows which enemies are going to be looking into. Here's an example on the map Outback in the laundry and piano bomb site. Placing in an Alibi Prisma on Dorm's window, Bathroom window, and Games window means that attackers are just going to have this big annoying decoy of Alibi in their way the whole time. Again, unless they waste utility to destroy them, they can't get it from the repel, and there's also going to be defenders on the other side of the window contesting them as well, and it just adds to the overall pressure and risk that the attackers have when on the window. Maestro's Evil Eye cameras are some of the strongest cameras in Rainbow Six Siege. The only way for attackers to destroy it is if Maestro opens it up himself and the inside of it becomes exposed, or if it is disabled by an EMP nade, it will also open up a tiny bit in the middle. The attackers can still hurt Maestro's Evil Eyes a little bit even if they don't destroy it. Rather, if they punch the glass on the front, it will become shattered and you'll only be able to see through it if the Evil Eye itself is open, therefore exposed as well. That's why it's quite good to place it in locations, especially above hatches where attackers simply can't reach it to punch it. If you go over a soft hatch for example, place the Evil Eye in the corner, then break the hatch after you have placed it. That also exists in locations such as Border where you can climb up on top of the shelf and place it on the roof. Once you destroy the monitor there, you can't get back up on that location, meaning that no one can reach that Evil Eye to punch it. Now, of course they can still blow it up and destroy it with other utility, but removing the aspect of them being able to reach it to punch it still gives you a massive advantage over the attackers, since half of the Evil Eye's utility is intel itself and not just zapping people. So, if possible, always try your best to place Evil Eyes in locations where attackers can't hit them. Maverick is a great operator, but it seems like low ranks really do struggle to use him. Maverick trick is something you see in high ranks all the time, and it is very simple to do. All you gotta do is do a line at the reinforcement at the top, a line at the bottom, and this will make the reinforcement disappear, leaving just a soft wall behind it. This is then when you can use a sledge or a buck or any other form of soft breach to open the wall, and even if it's electrified, the wall will now be open. Kaid is an operator I also typically play a lot, and when you're defending a bomb site which has one major wall of entry, it's really wise to dedicate both electric claws onto one breach. Here's the breach and electrical room on the map Outback. With the first electric claw, I place it to the left on this generator, away from the soft floor below it, and this helps cover the left side breach. Then with the other electric claw, I place it as far right as possible in the shelf, and this helps cover the right side breach. Now, any Kali charges won't be able to hit these electric claws, any nades from below will miss them as well, and if one of the electric claws get destroyed or EMP'd from the wall, what you gotta do is pick one of them up again, place it in the middle, and both walls will be covered. Dedicating 2 electric claws to one breach makes the attackers waste so much utility trying to get the breach, and your chances of successfully keeping the breach closed is significantly higher. Everyone knows that Nomad is a flank watch operator, and you're rightfully using her when you do that. But another great way to use her air jabs is using them to clear out defenders who are playing in certain positions, such as a half wall or behind the deployable shield, basically any position in which you're struggling to take them out. You'll see a lot of people not doing this since they are worried about what they would refer to as wasting this operator's gadget because they would rather save it for flank watch. But in situations like these, you can't really be conservative of your gadget, especially how useful Nomad's one can be in situations like this. If someone is playing behind a shield for example, and they even have ADSs, you have 3 flashbangs in your pocket. Start trying to flash out the defender and then use your air jab as the final blow, which will knock them on their butt, and not only will they be blinded, they'll be on the floor, not know where they are, and before they even get time to recover, you'll have swung them and taken them out. This is a more aggressive way to play Nomad, but it does have an outcome of some pretty great results. Don't be afraid to use your utility, especially when it comes to air jabs, as they are very useful at taking out defenders in situations like this. Next up we have Gridlock. Many people see her as a worse version of Nomad. I've already made a video where I've debunked this and actually showed that she is actually better in Nomad in a lot of situations. But one thing that Gridlock's track stingers are really good at is masking sound. When your team are getting to the point where it's time to close in on the objective and go for a plant, throwing a bunch of Gridlock's track stingers will make so much noise, and mixing this with gunfire, defenders won't be able to hear the plant going down, and once the plant is down, it'll have the track stingers to deal with. Trust me, from someone who's been on the receiving end of a well-played Gridlock, that masked the planting noise really well, and they managed to get a plant down under our noses. Do not underestimate the power that many of these gadgets in this game have to mask sound of what the enemies are truly doing. Similar to how we can now use echo drones outside, Mozzie drones can be used in a very similar way with the 10-second outside cam rule, allowing Mozzie drones to do quite a long rotation outside and still being able to come back into the building. And especially if you're going against a team which doesn't have the best coordination, if they see a drone outside, they're not going to assume that it's a Mozzie drone. They're going to expect to see them in the building. This, similar to the trick we showed for Echo, can allow you to get a drone in some really interesting locations for a defender, which attackers are just really not going to expect at all. Now in this current meta, Warden is in a weird position. He is one of the most played defenders, but that is because he has a 1.5 telescope on his MPX. His gadget, albeit good, at the end of the day is still very situational. There's not really much to say about his gadget, it is pretty simple. It makes him immune to flashbangs and he can see through smoke. And the only thing which is really kind of affecting Warden players right right now is a lot of them are too aggressive. But there's a playstyle of Warden you don't really see anymore, and that's sitting behind a deployable shield with a shotgun. I think this is a version of Warden players that we'll probably see again if the MPX does lose the 1.5 times scope, because in a situation like that, Warden is a force to be reckoned with. Just think of Elbow and Oregon. Yes, it is quite common to see a smoke there since his smoke grenades can slow down the push from bunker, but with enough ADSs and a skilled player, a Warden can do just as an effective job in my opinion. If you truly want to make the most out of Warden's gadget and not just his MPX with a 1.5 times scope, then move away from being a roamer, slow it down a bit, become more of an anchor flex, and stay alive until the late moments of the round to potentially stop and execute from the attackers. Nokk is a very commonly picked operator in both high ranks and in Pro League, since she can sneak her way past so many different pieces of utility, and I'm not sure all you guys may know this, but if you shoot an Alibi Prisma whilst you have your gadget active as Nokk, the Alibi Prisma will not ping you. So you can make a really sneaky play if there's an Alibi Prisma on a window, and Alibi is using this to make sure that no one enters that window, because of course they'll be pinged, and she is aware that the Prisma is still up. You as Nokk using your gadget can exploit that, sneak your way through the Prisma, and get your way into the room. And of course, with the reduced sound which Nook's gadget produces, this will definitely take an enemy by surprise. Now Goyo has a very interesting gadget, and the way the fire mechanics work in this game causes the placement of the canisters themselves to have an entirely different outcome on the game depending on how they're placed. My favorite example of this is the half-wall default plant spot on top floor chalet, and this really helps visualize how the mechanics work. So placing the Goyo canister just below the half wall itself, you'll realize once detonated, the fire will not reach where the planter usually is. That's because in this situation, the half wall itself is an object blocking the flames. So with us now knowing that this half wall is an issue and that's the reason why the flames are getting blocked, let's move the Goyo canister up as high as we can and see what the outcome is for this. So the canister has been moved above the half wall, and it's still an advantage for us since defenders cannot shoot it if the breach is opened. We can see now, since the canister itself is above the half wall, the fire will go over this object and it goes straight into the default plant spot where attackers usually plant. This little example right here shows how objects on the map, in this case the half wall, has the effect on the spread of the fire from a Goyo canister. And so, typically going forward, I recommend placing Goyo canisters as high as possible. The flames will always find their way to the bottom of the floor, and if they are placed higher up, that means any objects in the way they will go over, and this also works for windowsills as well. So always keep this in mind the next time you're playing Goyo, and this will lead to so many better placements with your canisters. Amaru is a great operator for taking the defenders by surprise, and you can use her in a way more effective way rather than just being a brainless rush operator. We all know that you can fly up hatches and fly through windows when you're standing on the ground, but you can also fly through windows which are just straight in front of you and you're on the same level as them, and it's that close to you that you're capable of just walking through the window normally. But we want to take the enemies by surprise. Punching the window gives away your position and it takes a little bit longer. Flying in a window which is straight in front of you allows you to get in the window and take the enemy by surprise so much better. Let's use outside house single wall on skyscraper as an example. If I get the call out that someone's in exhibition, I could break in this window slowly and try and win a gunfight against them. But like I said, this takes time and it also gives away our position. Well, simply flying in this window will get us in the room much faster and will also take the defender by surprise, allowing us to get that fast action kill. Like I said, there's many ways to play Amaru like this, and you don't have to just randomly fly in windows and get picked off easily. Right, this is a really great one with Kali. Have you ever been on ruins on coastline and then there's been a shield at the top of Vaz looking out through hookah, and you went to go shoot one of her explosive lances at it and it gets caught by a Jager ADS? Well, typically the ADS itself will be in Vaz, and the moment the lance goes through the hookah doorway into Vaz, that's where the ADS is catching it. So there's a simple way to not only destroy the shield without hitting the ADS, but also destroying the ADS as well. Well, simply don't shoot it at the shield. Shoot it at the wall beside the shield and it will burrow through, destroying anything on the wall and the shield itself. And that's a much more efficient way of clearing the shield top Vaz on coastline with Kali. Now listen, I love when my teammates take Wamai. It helps me a lot, and of course he is a great operator. But a lot of people seem to forget that Wamai doesn't destroy the gadgets, rather he just pulls them in a different direction. The amount of times that I've had a deployable shield or a Kiba barrier or any of my gadgets, and my teammate on Wamai has placed a magnet right beside it, and a grenade, which originally wasn't going to hit my shield, has then been pulled closer to the shield and then destroys it. If you're playing Wamai, remember to be a bit more cautious with your placements. Stuff like grenades are going to get caught and brought closer to your magnet. If your teammate has a useful gadget in that location where your magnet is, either place it somewhere else in a better location, or ask your teammate to move that gadget if necessary. Just be a bit more mindful when you're playing Wamai. Iana has become that much of a fragger now that I think a lot of people have forgotten what her gadget is. She is an unlimited human drone. She has the gadget of a support / recon operator but is played like a fragger. Many situations I have been in where we have a Iana on our team, they're looking for the last operator and they're just full body swinging every corner looking for them. But although Iana is used for recon, she can also be used to destroy some gadgets. For example, if there is an Aruni on the enemy team, using one of your Iana holograms, walking straight into this gate will disable it, and of course you have to wait for your hologram to recharge again. You've cleared the Aruni gate without using much utility at all. Just Iana players out there, remember that you do have a gadget because it is very useful and it helps the team quite a bit. Now Melusi is an operator which has been nerfed so much since she was released. She's now a 1 speed, her gadget can now be shot in the middle, it was actually bulletproof when it first came out, which was extremely overpowered, but there's still some quite interesting things that you can do with her Banshee other than just slowing people down. Of course, it is also an intel gadget, it lets you know that people are there, and it also works in some interesting ways. So sometimes if an attacker is playing above a Banshee in a different floor, it will actually start affecting the attacker, and this also works through drone holes as well. And it can lead to just some really interesting placements of Banshees. For example, placing it on the freezer drone hole on Cafe will start affecting people who are playing at bottom white stairs by freezer. This can allow a defender which is playing bar, Christmas tree, or on white stairs to act on its knowledge that there is an attacker there. Since they're not bulletproof anymore, you've definitely got to think outside the box a little bit and put them in safer locations. Now moving on to Ace, here is one that I really want you guys to learn, and you need to teach other people this as well because it is such a common mistake and it causes so many issues. When you are breaching a reinforced wall as Ace, make it that you can crouch through the wall. Do not make a vaultable hole with Ace. And there's a genuine reason for doing this. If you make it a vaultable hole, you have to not only go into an animation which takes you off your ADS, but you also make an even louder noise when you're jumping through, giving away your position to the enemy. Whereas if it's a walkable reach, you can go quietly and crouch walk through it. As well as this, you can ADS the entire time, you're not put into any animation. Whereas if you're vaulting for the breach and someone swings you, you're in an awful recovery mode where you're trying to get out of the vaulting animation, ADS, and fight back. If your intention for the Ace hole is to enter it and not just using it as a line of sight, you're always better making it crouch level. Zero, aka Sam Fisher, one of the most underrated operators in Rainbow Six Siege. I actually have a TikTok series where I show off a bunch of camera locations for Sam because I think he is that underrated, and I'm going to show one of them off right now, and this is using the drone holes on roofs to get really nice camera locations on maps such as Skyscraper and Coastline, which I'm going to be using in this example. So on Coastline, all you got to do simply is shoot your cameras into the 2 drone holes on the roof. One of them will give you a view onto Kill Vibes, the other one will give you a view behind the bar in Aqua, and the one on Skyscraper can be placed above Dragon, and it will show you if anyone is playing behind the Dragon statue. There's so many more spots with Sam Fisher I am still learning to this day, so be sure to check out my TikTok KudosR6 for more. So when it comes to Thunderbird, I assume a lot of you place all of your heals in sight during the prep phase. That is how you're meant to play her. She is a team operator and all her heals are for the team. Well, if you're a confident roamer, you can be a bit selfish and leave one of them in your pocket. This means when you're on the roam and take some damage, you can go hide away, place one of your Kona stations down, get some heals from it, pick it back up, and go back on your roam. Your team will still have the other Kona stations which you place down, so you're not being entirely selfish, but this is a more aggressive playstyle you can play on Thunderbird, which one of my ranked friends actually does a lot of the time and it works out well for him. This one is for mute and it's going to require you to keep one of your mute jammers in your pocket, and you're going to take this with you when you go around the map. A lot of you may not know this, but mute jammers actually counter claymores and air jabs, they disable them. So let's do an example here. Let's say we are flanking Small Bakery into Big Bakery on the map Cafe, and there's a claymore on our door. The angle the claymore is at is out of our reach, and we won't be able to shoot it if we swing the door. But with a mute jammer in our pocket, we can place it on the wall where the claymore is, and once the mute jammer is active, the claymore will be disabled, and we will be able to swing the angle. Of course, this does require the mute to not only play out of sight, but have one mute jammer in his pocket. But it can lead to some interesting plays because attackers who have claymores or air jabs on flanks are at the very least expecting to hear a gunshot to destroy some of this utility if they are getting flanked. But if you are silently disabling them with mute, you can catch them by surprise and hopefully get a few picks and win the round. Next up we have Glaz, and I gotta say, stop treating Glaz like he is a sniper operator. The sooner you realize that Glaz has a strong DMR, which has a heat finding scope which outlines all of the enemy team, you're gonna realize that you can play much more aggressive with Glaz than you can with some other operators. One of these tricks I like to use is on the snowmobile wall on Chalet. For this trick, it also does require a Maverick, but when the Maverick makes a line across the top, I, as the Glaz, can react quickly, see the outlines of all the defenders playing in that site, and since this is a massive choke point for the defending team when defending this bomb site, you can usually get a good amount of free picks, and this can happen in the early stages of the round. So yeah, stop holding back, stop going to the sniper's nest. You need to be playing aggressive on Glaz and holding those tight choke point angles, which is going to pick away the defenders. This next one is a bit trickier here since it's for an operator which even in high play can be a bit hard to pull off, and I am of course talking about Tachanka, but thanks to Shimika Launcher's unique mechanics, there is some pretty interesting strats and plays which you can find out. One of them is an insane lineup on Clubhouse once again being used as an example here, going all the way from Logi, allowing your Shimika Launcher's flames to go straight on the breach by CC, which could help kill a thermite which is on the wall, which would also be assisting a bandit which would be actively tricking the wall. Granted, this is a bit difficult to pull off, it may not always work, and of course you can be killed from the hatch in Logi, but if this trick has showed us anything, it's the fact that Tachanka's potential has not been fully utilized. And I can't wait to see more lineups like this that people discover. Next up we have Fuze. Now Fuze is another operator which I feel a lot of people sleep on, and considering how much utility he has in his pocket, it can lead to some extremely interesting plays. So I'll ask you a question right now. Someone is defending bottom floor and you are playing Fuze. What are you going to do? You could go in the room directly above the bomb site and start fusing from below, that can work. However, you are at risk of getting C4'd from below by a pulse, by a solace. People could be flanking from any other direction around the map. When you're playing above as a Fuze, you are at risk of dying quite easily for the most part. That's why as Fuze, you gotta start eliminating some factors of danger and start playing outside the map, and more specifically on windows. I was gonna use the piano window in Consulate as an example, but since the rework for that map is just about to come out, we'll head back to Chalet again and use the example there. Now of course this is going to be when the defenders are defending bottom floor, and you as the Fuze player want to eliminate that risk of getting killed from below or getting flanked, so all you gotta do is start fusing the barricades from the outside. You can do this in 2 of the barricades on Fireplace, it's up to you, and when you first fuse the barricade, the charges will go off and they'll start softening up the floor a little bit, but they won't go straight through. That's when you want to start fusing it again, and eventually after this time it will go through the floor itself and start going into the bomb site. You can then keep doing this on the barricade as long as it is still up, and all the charges will go through the floor straight into the bomb site, and this works on so many different maps. So next time you're playing Fuze, be a bit safer and just do it from the outside. Yeah, it may take 1 Fuze charge to soften up the floor a little bit, but he has 4. That's honestly more than he even needs. Right, next up we have IQ. This may sound a bit simple for some people, but I've seen so many comments of when I've done a play like this, and it seems like people didn't know this. When a defender goes on their cameras, which is a phone, that shows up on IQ's scanner. Anytime a defender is on their phone, IQ can see them. So especially as the higher in the ranks you keep going and more intel is necessary, not only can IQ show where the gadgets are, but she can also tell the entire team where the person sitting on cameras is. This can lead to some pretty cool floor bangs. I had one when I was on Chalet and I rushed Trench because I seen someone on their phone and I swung the corner and knifed them. For the most part, when the defenders go on their phone, they're not really going to be expected to be spotted by an IQ. This is where you're going to use that to your advantage. Next up we have Blitz, and honestly it's very simple. Blitz isn't a hard to understand operator. The main issue so many people fail with Blitz is just because they are running in mindlessly and hoping to get a few picks. Many people fail to realize how useful Blitz is in a team aspect rather than just being a solo rusher. Take Elbow on bottom floor Oregon for example. You'll always typically find a deployable shield there with some ADSs, maybe some Wamai magnets, and someone playing behind the shield itself. Your job as the attacker is to get that clearance to finally make a push around that corner, especially not getting shot from E-Box or Shaiko, but even when you do get that moment to push that corner, you can still lose the gunfight and the defender will still win. Because the moment you get that clearance, you can pop a line scan, run around with a Blitz, and even if you aren't the one to kill the operator, you can still flash them and your teammate behind you can get the kill. The majority of the time why a Blitz player dies is because they have too big of an ego and are trying to go for kills rather than supporting their team. As a Blitz, you honestly shouldn't be getting kills. Flash the enemies and allow your teammates to shoot them. This next one is for Bandit, and there's honestly not that much you can do with this operator other than electrifying walls. He's great at what he does, but when it comes to doing other insane strats, he's kind of limited there. One thing I'd like to say though, it is quite good to place the Bandit charges on separate sides of the wall as far away as possible, especially with secondary EMP nades being a massive thing on attack now. If the Bandit charges are far enough apart, they're going to have to use 2 of them to try and get the Bandit batteries, rather than getting both batteries in one EMP throw. It's the same case if they're nading from below for example, they may only be able to hit 1 of the charges, so it's just quite good to try and keep them as far apart as possible and make the job for the attackers as hard as possible. You can also do a little trick where you get some barbed wire and place some Bandit batteries on it. That is quite good for anti-drone. However, if you are going to go to that extent, you might as well just bring a mute. Right, the next one we have is Rook. Just place your armor when the round starts. Don't go away reinforcing, don't try and go and roam, place your armor first. But if you would like a tip for Rook, play behind hard barriers or even deployable shields, because ever since his armor got a rework, it now grants the withstand ability. And if you are playing behind these hard walls, of course you have a magnified scope as well, so you have an advantage. If they do eventually injure you, you'll be protected and be able to withstand and fight for the rest of the round and get that second chance. Now Doc is an interesting one. He's become so much more viable ever since he received the Bailiff. He can now make rotates, lines of sight, head holes, feet holes, open up hatches. And if you want to heal more of your teammates in a safer position rather than having to cross across the map or make them come close to you, the Bailiff can be useful for that as well, because by just shooting a tiny hole in the wall, that means you can bring out your stim pistol and stim your teammate from a different site. So yeah, the Bailiff has done wonders for Doc, and if you aren't running it, you're missing out. Twitch recently got some interesting changes as well. For the majority of the lifespan of this game, Twitch's drones couldn't jump. They had a set amount of lasers, and those lasers you had to be really close to the gadget for it to destroy it. But now Twitch's drones have infinite lasers, they just have to recharge over time. So before, once you used up all your lasers on a Twitch drone, you could have just used that drone as a normal drone, drive it into sight, and if it gets destroyed, it gets destroyed. But now, since they can infinitely recharge, you want to focus on keeping those 2 Twitch drones as alive as possible for as long as you can. Twitch as an operator now has 4 drones in total, 2 default and 2 Twitch drones, so when you're playing Twitch, you should prioritize which ones you're going to use based on the engagement you're going to take. If you're going to destroy utility, of course, use the shock drone. But if you are droning your teammate in, then you're probably better using one of your default drones and saving your shock drone for when you're going to destroy utility. You may have 4 drones in total, but to use them all efficiently, that comes down to you. Monty is a really interesting one, and you can do this with Blitz as well, but he is going to be one of the best operators you're going to use when going for a plan. So when you're going to plant the diffuser whilst playing as Monty, you're going to want to face the opposite direction of where you believe the enemies are. This is because when you go to plan, the shield will go on Monty's back, and that means your back is protected from getting shot from the enemies whilst you are planting the diffuser. This gives you that extra bit of coverage whilst you are planting, and of course your teammates should be holding the crossfire as well, but if a few stray bullets do start hitting you, this will hopefully save your life and allow you to put the diffuser down. The thermite one is really fun if there is a bandit or Cade on the wall and you can't get rid of it, but you still want to thermite the wall open, then you use the environment around it. For example, this one in Theme Park going into initiation, if you place a thermite charge on the wall beside an electrified breach, it will open the wall even if it is electrified still. You can also do this vertically as well. A very common site on this is on Oregon in Small Tower. Placing a thermite charge above a breach will open half of the breach itself. I'm thinking of doing an entire guide showing as many spots as possible where you can do this with thermite charges, so be sure to stick around in the future for that. Pulse can be very useful to nitrocell people who are going for hatches, for example on Cafe. Pre-placing a nitrocell on one of these soft hatches and using your scanner to wait for someone to come close to it can allow you to easily catch an enemy by surprise, especially if they are using breach charges. This is especially more useful on Pulse now, since Valkyrie cameras and other forms of cameras cannot go outside the map. Next up we have Castle, and there's quite a little interesting play you can make with him. Using a castle barricade right beside a staircase, it allows you as a defender to get a really solid angle underneath the castle barricade itself because the stairs go down, and the attackers won't really be able to get an angle on you, and of course you'll be protected from the castle barricade itself from bullets. I know I'm showing this on the old version of Consulate, but the rework version has this same doorway here and the spiral stairs, so it still works the same. Ashe is an operator which I find very interesting because I still feel like a lot of people play her wrong. I don't really know why she is the dedicated rushing operator. I know she has good weapons and she's fast, but I feel like a lot of rank stars years ago kind of ruined the reputation of Ashe and really diminished what her gadget is actually used for, because Ashe is actually a really great vertical operator. She has her primary breach and charge gadget, as well as she can bring secondary breach and charges as well, and that actually makes her really solid for making lines of sight from above and playing vertical down on the bomb site. Yes, operators such as Sledge and Buck are better than this, but many people might not be a fan of Sledge and Buck's weapons, their speeds, and if you are just more comfortable in Ashe, you can still play this role. But a lot of the time when people play Ashe, they do play a bit brainless, and I think a lot of people forget that Ashe's gadget is actually very useful, and you can slow down a bit with her and still have great results. Aruni, possibly my favorite defender in Rainbow Six Siege to this day, you can actually use her gates to trick hard breaches on a wall. So if you've ever played with an Aruni, you know if you're a defender and you get close to the gate will open up and allow you to pass through. But even if the gate is on the other side of the wall, as long as you're close enough, it will also open and close. So with this trick, before before you reinforce, you want to run out, place your Aruni Gate outside, and then reinforce the wall. You're then going to want to stand close to the breach, which will deactivate the Aruni Gate, meaning that it's open. Then when an attacker puts some hard breach on the wall, the moment you step away from the wall, it will then activate the Aruni Gate once again. It will catch the hard breach, disabling the gate, but also destroying the hard breach charge. Yes, this is something you have to dedicate yourself to, but even if the attackers know you're doing this, they can't stop it. The only way they could now is if the off chance that they have a Brava and they hack it from the outside. Other than that, they cannot counter this strat. You don't see it played very often, but when it does typically work. Now, Thatcher is a really interesting one. He gets the most banned out of any other operator in ranked. Many people say that he's been replaced by the secondary EMP nade, and his place in the game is just a bit more uncertain than it ever has been. But the thing that still keeps Thatcher relevant in the game is the fact that his EMP radius is far bigger than the secondary EMP nades. This means that you can get some interesting plays and think a bit outside of the box with Thatcher. For example, if there is a camera in a room which you want to take, but you can't safely remove that camera with any other gadgets, you can actually use an EMP from the outside and disable that gadget or camera through the walls. This is where you can start to find some really interesting locations where you can throw some Thatcher EMPs, which are safe from Jager ADSs for example, but will still get the job done. Smoke is quite a simple operator who has a strong gadget. Years ago, there was a lot of strats where you could actually use his smoke and it would clip through the wall and go into some default plant locations. Since then, however, they did rework how the smoke works in the game and managed to fix this issue where it would clip through objects. So after they fixed that, it is pretty simple how smoke works. He cuts off angles and stops plants. But what a lot of people seem to forget is that his smoke grenades make noise when they're detonated. This can be used to mask your footsteps when you're going for a rotate or a flank. Not only will they try and react to that smoke grenade as well, but for a partial time, their sound will be masked by the detonation of the smoke grenade itself, and this can open that tiny window for you to get out of that pinch and potentially even swing and win a gunfight. People seem to really underestimate how loud some gadgets can be, and this is one of them which can help you mask sound. This next one for Sledge is a really fun one I use all the time. Sledge is of course an operator where you play vertical play, but if you want to catch the enemies below by surprise, a really nice little trick you can do is throw one of your frag grenades at the floor. Do not cook it or anything. We want it to have as long as a detonation time as possible. And after a few seconds, we are going to sledge the piece of the floor where the grenade is. And once this floor opens, the grenade, already about to explode, will start to fall down this hole, and anyone below that hole will get blown up instantly and not have enough time to react. This is especially good when you know where the enemies are below, because the moment you go for a sledge above them, they're going to try and move from that location or start shooting back. This little trick right here allows you to get that little element of surprise and give them the least amount of time to react to what you're doing. Now, Frost is an operator which is getting ever so popular as the game goes on, even to the point where Ubisoft are considering reworking her in year 8. At the current point of upload, they have delayed this rework, so we don't know if they actually are going to go through with it, but she is a very impactful operator. Now, an issue I see with many people who use Frost mats is that they'll just place him on default windows, and for the most part, the attackers will know how to deal with them and pre-fire them when they are jumping in. But to get the most out of Frost is when you play alongside your Frost mats and don't go too far away from them. This is what I like to kind of call the phantom pressure of Frost mats. For example, if you're playing outside of stock on top hallway in bank, let's say you are set up in the hallway with a shield and you have 2 Frost mats, one of each on both window in stock. The outside balcony and top square is a very popular place for the attackers to push here. What we're expecting with the Frost mats isn't to get a kill with the Frost mats, rather it's to divert and focus the attention of the attacker themselves onto trying to destroy the Frost mats, and that's when we'll take a pick on them. Using this site as the same example, if you shotgun the wall out into the hallway, you can see the windows themselves. If these Frost mats are in the window, the attackers are going to have to decide, do I focus on shooting the Frost mat when I jump in, or do I focus on shooting the defender who's in the hallway also holding this crossfire? To me, that gives way more value in Frost mats, rather than just randomly throwing them on windows and hoping for the best. Next up, we have personally one of my favorite operators, and that is Buck. Now, I assume most of you guys know how to play vertical in the game. You play from the floor above, and you look down into sight. And this can be done with operators such as Buck and Sledge, and some other operators as well. But what makes Buck different from Sledge is the fact that Buck can play from below and shoot up into sight. I really like to do this on Emerald Plains, and I come into this sort of little lounge room which is downstairs below the common bomb site, and there's also a double wall from the outside which is typically never reinforced, so it's really easy to enter as Buck as well. And then all you gotta do is to start ripping the floor above you into shreds, and you'll get just a nice angle across the bomb site itself. You can watch the rotation between the sites, you can watch the doorway between the sites, you can see if anyone is pushing towards the single wall. There's so many different choke points you can hold here, and especially in a post-plant situation, you can watch the diffuser from below, and the defenders are definitely not going to expect you to play below here, because how often do you truly see a buck playing vertical like this? For Valkyrie, you're going to want to find some spots which are just never typically used. A lot of the time when Valkyries get countered is just because they're placing them in default spots around the map. It's pretty obvious to find a Valk cam in a room because you just look in the basic corners, you look at the top right corners of all the rooms. Most Valkyrie players will just place them in plain sight and hope for the best. But using Valk cameras in between objects can lead to some really nice cameras which are going to be hard to spot. Like for example, one I like to use on Chalet is when going down bottom fireplace stairs. If you look directly up and shoot in the floor, you can squeeze a Valk camera right in between it, and this will give intel if anyone is going to be pushing down fireplace stairs. And no one is ever going to look directly up here because they're too focused on getting swung from the bottom of the staircase itself. And considering how much of a common push point fireplace stairs is, this is an extremely useful Valk camera. Right, let's talk about Blackbeard. I unironically play him. He's one of my most played attackers for the past 3 seasons now, and it's purely because he allows me to peek a lot of aggro angles which you typically shouldn't peek and defenders are not expecting. And that's honestly a massive issue I see with Blackbeard players, is that they're just so scared to peek stuff that by the time they even peek, their shield is already destroyed and he's pretty much deemed useless. Don't be afraid to play aggressive on Blackbeard. Don't bother slowly punching a window hoping that someone is going to walk past. Get right up and close to it and start opening the barricade with your bullets. You'll take someone by surprise, and before they even have time to react, you have a shield protecting your face and you've already killed them. And just stop using his Scar. It's not a great weapon. Use the DMR. It's extremely strong. The ammo capacity is much more forgiving as well. His Scar runs out of ammo so fast and you're stuck in a clunky reload animation, whereas his DMR is a lot more forgiving and it's just a really strong weapon. So equip that DMR and play way more aggressive. You have your advantage by taking your enemy by surprise. Dokkaebi is really interesting ever since she got the recent change to her gadget, where before it only knocked defenders who were alive off cameras and made them inaccessible until the phone call was over, but now it does it to dead defenders on cameras as well. This now means when Dokkaebi does one of her calls, every single defender, alive or dead, cannot access the camera unless they hang up the call if they're alive, and if they're dead, they have to wait for the entire duration. This is especially useful in the end of round situations where operators such as Maestro need to be on their cameras to make it useful and potentially stop a plan. This can be used earlier in the round as well though, where you can once again synergize with other operators such as IQ. Dokkaebi will force defenders to go on their phone. When defenders going to hang up their call, they will appear on IQ's scanner. This means that a well synergized Dokkaebi and IQ player can reveal the location of the defenders without the defenders even knowing. Dokkaebi just does a call, they go to hang up, IQ pings where their phones are and gives away their location to the entire attacking team. So next time you play Dokkaebi, don't always think that it's just to give away the defender's location by their phones ringing. You can do so much more with just a single phone call. Capitao is interesting because I feel like not a lot of people understand how the mechanics of his flame bow actually works. So his smoke arrows will deploy wherever they are shot. If you shoot it at the roof, the smoke will deploy on the roof. However, the way the fire works, it will always drop to the location below it, meaning that you can get some really cool plays where if you shoot the flame bow at the roof, it will then drop down from the roof and then go to the floor below where there could be a defender playing. This can help take the enemy by surprise, as well as obviously pushing them out of that area and potentially pushing them into a crossfire which your teammate or yourself has, allowing you to get the pick on that enemy. This is great in post-plant situations as well. Let's say the Fuzer is down on Chalet Breach upstairs and Capitao is all the way in fireplace. He doesn't even need to peek the breach, and all the way from bottom fireplace he can shoot a flame bolt all the way up, and the defender will simply not have enough space to defuse unless they want to be burned to a crisp. Right, here is a gold player's biggest nightmare. We have Caveira. So the lower the rank you're in, you may be possible just to simply down someone as Caveira and go for a simple interrogation. But the higher you go through the ranks, the more coordinated teams get to be, and the odds of a Caveira finding a single attacker on the map by themselves with no other operator becomes increasingly lower. So I know this goes against what her ability is, but just because you injure someone as Caveira doesn't mean you should instantly go for an interrogation. There's a high chance that that enemy you just injured is going to have a teammate not far behind. A lot of the time you're going to find a second teammate coming alongside them, and honestly the overall power of you being Caveira being alive is better than the interrogation in my opinion. Playing as Caveira and going for a failed interrogation with 2 minutes on the clock is a lot less impactful in my opinion than you getting a single pick, running away and still having to be a burden for the attacking team. I'm not saying never interrogate when you're playing as Caveira, but being that hard to track roamer will always have a bigger payoff than going for an interrogation, especially when it's early in the round. Hibana has a lot of very interesting tricks, and the one I'm showing off you may have seen in one of my other videos, but I think it is that good of a trick that I want more people to know it, but it just makes her that much more of an efficient operator. So using just 4 Hibana pellets, you can make a hole in the wall which is perfectly crouchable. You don't have to crawl, you don't have to vault or anything. A perfectly crouchable hole which uses as little utility as possible and also doesn't affect your aiming or ADSing. All you have to do is line up the laser on your X-Kairos launcher, and when you line it up with the bit of the reinforcement at the bottom, this will make a hole which allows you to crouch through it perfectly. There is a little bit of wiggle room, but you can get through the hole, and you can do this whilst maintaining an ADS on an angle and don't have to worry into going into any animation or having to go prone. And considering it only took 4 pellets to do this out of a total of 18, that means that you can do this on so many different walls, which makes Hibana that much better for hard breaching walls. Next up we have Jackal, one of the most banned attackers in the ranked playlist, and very simply you find enemies' footsteps and you track them to find where the enemies are. Every single defender's footstep is shown to Jackal. The only exception is Caveira when she has her ability active, but if she doesn't activate her ability, her footsteps will be shown. But a simple way just to get better as Jackal is to use his secondary shotgun to make holes in the floor and look for footsteps below you. This can help you find a location of a defender who didn't get any footsteps where your position currently is upstairs, and they could have potentially had an angle on you which would have killed you. Now this doesn't work the other way around. You can't play below and do this above you. You used to be able to, but they actually nerfed Jackal by removing this feature, but it still does work from top to bottom, but not bottom to top. So yeah, Jackal is already enough of a strong operator. This little tip just helps you find even more footsteps in a safer way. This is a really nice little trick to do when you're playing mirror, and it's something you should do every single time you play mirror. When you place your mirror window on the wall, use your secondary shotgun to shoot out the wall at the other side, as a lot of the debris on the soft wall can get in the way of your mirror window, and this just gives you increased visibility, and it only takes 2 seconds to do. Next up we have Osa, who is my favorite attacker in the game. With Osa being my most played attacker, my tip to you is just to play these cross angles which you were never safely able to play before until Osa was released. For example, one of my favorite ones is to play outside of the breach on CCTV cache on Clubhouse, and just play quite aggressive onto the breach itself and people playing on top rafters. I'm not even necessarily peeking them, rather I'm just pressuring them and allowing my teammates to do their job. I am still getting kills along the way, but I'm not just running into sight, I'm not swinging every angle, I am holding this breach down. And when rafters is clear and the time is right, you start making your push into sight, set up a shield again, and go for a plan. Osa is the best operator when going for a plan in my opinion, and that's why I play her so much. I also just really love the PDW. So with Osa, you're going to play that intimidation and aggression game with the enemies until they eventually overpeak, and then end up gifting you a free kill. So here we have Solace. Solace is absolutely amazing, and here's a very common thing I like to do with Solace. When playing Chalet, I like to play very aggressive on the solar window. You can actually get your way on top of it, so you can stand in the middle of the window frame and see attackers leaving the campfire spawn. Solace, with her ability to see attackers who are on drones, can catch people off guard if they are droning the downstairs garage. And even waiting a bit into the round until someone does go on their drone there and then peeking this angle, you can catch a lot of people off guard, and I even done this to an IQ the other day who was just scanning the map for gadgets. Solace is absolutely amazing, and this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her tricks. So if you're like me, the reveal for Brava made her look a bit more stronger than she turned out to be. And when we play her, we realize it's really hard to pull off a hack with her gadget, and in the off chance that you do actually manage to hack a gadget, they just instantly destroy it anyway. So here's the harsh reality of Brava. Start focusing on default drones and stop going for defender gadgets. You're going to have much more success going for all the default cameras around the map, rather than trying to get one single gadget which is in a heavily guarded bomb site. Just slip through a drone hole, grab a default camera, go out the drone hole, and go find another one. Not long after, you'll have 6 defender cameras in your control and they will no longer have access to it. And to me, I find that is way more useful with her gadget rather than trying to get it into sight, zap like a goo mine or an alibi prisma, and it gets destroyed in 2 seconds. I know hacking a defender's default camera isn't as flashy as hacking something like an ADS or an Echo drone, but the harsh reality is you're just going to make Brava way more effective if you go for these default cams, and you're going to give your team a lot of useful intel. Fenrir is the brand new operator on the test server for Operation Dread Factor, which is coming out just a few days after this video is uploaded, and the best way to play Fenrir honestly is to keep most of his gadgets in the site itself. As you can see in this clip playing, I 1v5'd with Fenrir, and the majority of the reason I done this is because I was able to do a massive sight retake using his gadgets. The enemy may have had sight, but they kept losing their vision. That's where I was able to slip through and win the round. I honestly think Fenrir is one of the best sight retaking operators there is in defense. The way that you can take the upper hand away from the enemy is extremely interesting, and I cannot wait to see how he performs when it comes to the live build. And last and definitely least, we have Grim. there isn't really any major tips we can give for Grim at this current point in time, because in his current state, before his rework in Season 4, he's not very good. And honestly, my best tip for Grim is don't play Grim. Play Capitao instead. Capitao is just a better version of Grim. There are operators which have similar roles, such as Buck and Sledge, however, they are vastly different and can do different jobs. Grim is factually just a worse version of Capitao, and anything that Grim can do, Capitao can do better. So, my tip for Grim, go play Capitao. And so everyone, that is a tip slash trick for every single operator in Rainbow Six Siege, up to the point of Operation Dread Factor. This video is almost an hour long and it took so much effort to make, so if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe if you are new. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, which tip was your favorite, and let me know any tips you would like to share yourself. So yeah, I'm going to end this video here, so like I said, drop a like if you did enjoy, dislike if you're not, subscribe if you're new, and I shall catch you later. I love you all, stay safe, peace.